The 3 benefits to building wealth internationally in 2023. Have you ever met a rich person and they had multiple passports, homes in different countries, and foreign bank accounts?
And you probably didn't find this out because they were bragging about it.
Like some rich kid in a high school movie scene.
It was something they told you by accident because their parents told them not to tell anyone about this. Or it may have been relevant to the conversation and because someone said they were going to that place.
Right now, if you're a second generation U.S. citizen like myself,
and if you come from an immigrant family, you probably already know this is something that is not exclusive to the rich.
Have you ever been on a trip and thought to yourself about buying a property, wanting to invest in a business, or even just thinking to yourself, wow, I really wish we had a reason to come back here?
66% of Americans are willing to move abroad for a better salary. 64% of Americans are willing to move abroad for a better work-life balance.
And if you could start building an income outside of the U.S. right now, would you take it? So here are the 3 benefits to building wealth internationally in 2023.
Of course, I want to add a disclaimer for you because this video is only meant for informational purposes only. It should not be taken as legal or tax advice. I'm not a tax consultant or a lawyer or an accountant. I do none of those things. I'm just a guy reading information that I found online that may be helpful for you.
Reason number 1, getting a higher ROI, return on your investment. Now, if you wanted to become neighbors with Tom Brady, because probably the properties around him are going to go up in value, of course, you probably can't afford
a property on Miami Beach for $17 million. But you probably can afford a property in Santa Teresa, Costa Rica, which properties range from $100,000 to $500,000. And we're talking about a property that would have low maintenance costs for you, and you still be neighbors with Tom Brady, just in another country. And just purely from an investment strategy, this is probably and usually a very good idea for you, just because the properties in these areas usually go up in value because wealth follows other wealth. Actors, doctors, lawyers, singers, they all want to be in the same area to connect with each other. And then usually those same areas have tax benefits and reasons why those people are moving to those areas in general. And the communities around them are also developing as well.
Reason number 2, you want to lower your risk.
I've always been a big fan of action movies and mafia movies. And one thing every savvy crime boss always had was a safe house. Think Pablo Escobar from Colombia having a safe house in Panama.
This could be your home that you decide to go to every few months to help you recharge.
Because your environment is one of the biggest determining factors when it comes to your success.
Because how you feel is largely dependent on what's around you and where you physically are. And most people forget.
You're in control of where you are and who you associate yourself with.
So why not take full control over your environment and significantly increase your chances of having a better life with your family, kids, in an area you want to be in?
And this can be an area where no one actually really knows where you are, and an area that you like to put you in a different mind state, help you create new ideas, and even just be a place to store things that you have, valuables that you want to have, where no one really knows the location. For instance, your crypto, your watches, your gold, anything that's valuable that you want to just have in a space that's different from your current location and just adds a little bit more diversity to your portfolio. Some of these countries do give out loans, but they're at significantly higher interest rates, so a lot of people don't get them. And the people there really have to save up to buy homes. So if you are coming in as an investor and you have access to capital, you can go into these countries and spend less than $100,000 for not just a down payment, but again, to buy the entire property and have very low property taxes, next to nothing in some cases. And what's the number one lawsuit that you may have to consider or worry about or protect yourself from in the future if you are a married man in the U.S.? That's divorce. So if you were to have a property before you were married in another country and have purchased that property, owned it, and you're the only one on the deed to that property, of course, talk to your lawyer, and I highly recommend you get a prenup. But in, for example, Panama, Colombia, Brazil, Belize, you may not be at risk of losing your property there if you bought it before that marriage started and if you're not legally married in that country. Now, let me just make this clear now. I'm very pro-marriage in the U.S., but I think that this adds to the complexity of your investments and of your financial future, where it's an important asset to have before you get married to protect yourself more. Even though I am pro-marriage in the U.S., I think you should marry somebody where you're from a similar background, it's just going to be a lot easier for you to have a successful marriage in the future, in my opinion. And the more you can protect your assets, the better financial structure and plan that you have in place for you and your family is going to increase the likelihood of that marriage working out in the future and keeping the family together, because you're going to have a lot of planning and structure and be leading the family in a better place than otherwise not having it. And finally, having a legally non-reportable asset may be extremely beneficial to you. So if you had a beach house in Miami, Florida, you may be paying really high property taxes on that beach house. But if you have a beach house in Belize, they might not be charging you at anything or next to nothing in property taxes. Whereas in the US, you have a legally non-reportable asset while you're doing that. Instead of having to pay the US on that asset, you're paying Belize, but Belize is barely charging you anything to have that asset as in property taxes. So once it's paid off, essentially it's just paid off. You don't still owe the property, or you still don't owe money to that property every year or a significant amount, which it makes it feel like you still have a rent. So those are the 3 reasons why you should invest internationally. I may have even went to 4 by accident, and I'll give you another bonus reason just to finish this off here. And that would be getting more residence permits, more passports, because doing all of these things, you're probably already working, or if you were to do any of these things that I mentioned, you'd already be working towards a passport in that country, most likely. It just depending on how much time you spend there or how much you actually invest into that country. So just in a few years, you can get another passport or residency. You can learn the language. You can add more things to what you want to do with your life and just have a different passport you could show instead of showing your own. So buying real estate, putting money into a bank, and creating businesses are very simple ways where you can invest into another country and get a passport back in the future. So let's recap. The 3, maybe 4 investments that you can make or reasons you should make for investing internationally is getting a higher ROI, lowering your bubble risk, making more investments in other places, and adding more complexity to your legal structure, having a non-reportable asset, getting more residence permits and passports in the future. And if you like this video and thinking to yourself that you don't have an extra $100,000 or $1 million to invest in a property internationally, you can watch this next video right here that talks about what you can invest in now, even with a small savings.